The first and most important thing really is to say thank you to a few people. So let me first do that. So, I think OASPA has done it again. The program committee have delivered a really fantastic conference, and jolly good for doing that, given that it's the 10th anniversary one. So I just want to start by thanking the people who kind of made that possible. So first of all, actually, we've talked a lot about the sponsors, but I do want to thank them again one last time, because without them, this literally wouldn't be possible. So if anyone in the audience is associated with sponsors and want to do that again next year, that would be fantastic. The organising committee, so chaired by Carolyn Sutton, and I've heard some great feedback about that first session actually that Caroline chaired. It was, I think, very well received by everybody, and so I think that's a format that it would be great to do again. And Caroline did a fantastic job of facilitating that. So thanks to Caroline, to Liz Ferguson, Lucy Oates, Ilko Verwerder, Stuart Taylor, Xenia van Edig, Katrina McCallum, and Lars Bjornshauger. Also, I want to mention one other person who hasn't been thanked yet, who wasn't necessarily involved in the conference, but he's been on the board of directors of OASPA for the last 6 years. I didn't realise it was quite that long, and he's been the treasurer for the last 4, and he's gone now, but this is going to be on camera, so I said it, Rodri. So I just want to thank Rodri Jackson as well for all the contributions he's made to the board. He's now stepped off the board. I want to say a thank you to the speakers and to the poster presenters as well, who all did a really fantastic job. And last but definitely not least, I want to thank Claire Redhead and Layla Williams for the awesome job they've done to run everything. So, how do you sum up the last 3 days? I mean, Jeffrey kind of did that, which makes it slightly scary to give my perspective, but, here we go. So a lot of people have said that progress has been slow, so that's definitely come up several times. But I don't know, I don't necessarily feel that way. I think a lot has been happening, a lot is happening. And, the landscape is shifting steadily beneath our feet. One of the undercurrents of the whole meeting has obviously been Plan S. So I like metaphors. So I was sort of thinking, well, what kind of metaphor could be appropriate for Plan S? And I was wondering whether it would be, depending on your perspective, a guiding star, maybe, or a black cloud, maybe for some people, or a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I'm not sure any of those really work, but then I got to thinking about the dinosaurs last night. And I was thinking, so maybe what Plan S is the asteroid that finally got rid of the dinosaurs. So what are the dinosaurs? The dinosaurs could be the paywalls that we stick in front of content. That could be a dinosaur that's about to be a thing of the past. It could be the hybrid journal, which is a relatively young dinosaur in a sense, but still it's looking pretty dinosaurish at the moment. And definitely it could be the current evaluation system that we use to evaluate scholars and scholarship. Although I think actually it's going to take a hell of a lot more than an asteroid to get rid of that one. But I'll come back to that in a second. So the difference, of course, for us is that we know this is coming. We know this particular asteroid is on the way. And there are a lot of details to be figured out in terms of how we navigate the territory before and after this all comes into effect. I thought it was great, actually, to have Robert Jan Smits at the conference, and the Q&A was particularly helpful, I think, for everyone, and it was very interactive. So I think that was another great job well done by the program committee, actually, to organise that at such short notice. And I think another key sort of message that was something that Paul said, amongst others, is that OASPA as an organisation has a part to play in this, a big part potentially to play in this. We've heard a lot about workflows in this conference. They've come up again and again, whether it's to do with depositing data or financial flows and stuff like that. So that's something that OASPA could potentially really help with. And so I think one of the other things that I'm coming away with from the conference is a sense, a more kind of optimistic sense about the future of OASPA, actually, in light of some of these changes. Another theme, as we negotiate the next a few years that's come up again and again, I think, is the notion that we need to be inclusive in terms of the way we think about the transitions that are going on. We know some of the characteristics of the system that we're heading towards. We don't know all of them. We know that that openness is going to be a big part of that. We know we're trying to create a more collaborative culture for scholarship. But at the moment, it seems to me, a lot of the focus is on how do we transition big publishers. And that's fine, and that's important. Obviously, it's important. But we mustn't sideline the pure OA publishers, the smaller publishers, the potentially publishers that are actually much easier to deal with. It's just one business model. And also, they can be more nimble. And remember, there are smaller publishers as well who aren't necessarily open access at this point, but are really attempting to negotiate the transition themselves. And we heard, I think, a great example of that in Cameron Name's talk. Really interesting how they're grappling with that kind of transition. So all of those things need to be taken into account. What else was I going to say there? So we need to create the kind of environment where all of these kinds of new ideas and approaches, and Jeffrey may be very critical about where we are with these things, but I don't know, I see some really interesting experiments and innovations going on, and we need the kind of environment that's going to encourage those innovations, allow them to flourish. Some will fail, and that's fine, and hopefully some will succeed. And another really important point to bear in mind, I think, in that context, is this issue of inclusion. As pointed out by several speakers, Susan Murray, Irina Kuchma, and Kathleen Shearer, and others, is that we are in a global system, and we have to think of the transition in that context so that we move not just towards much greater access to information, but we're also encouraging greater participation and engagement in scholarship across the world. So these are really important perspectives to bear in mind. So, in light of all this kind of innovation and experimentation, I think, one of the other themes is diversity that we're seeing. And, I think we should expect that when you bear in mind that we have had 350 years to evolve scholarly communication in print, to adapt to that medium. We've only had about 20 or so in this digital environment. And digital environments are digital and print are about as different as marine and terrestrial ecosystems. So we should expect a completely different complexion and mixture and different types of scholarly communication in this new environment. So we really need to encourage that. And we should expect a lot more change. And access to journal articles and books is just one piece of that puzzle. Just to mention some of the innovations that we've heard about, we've heard a little bit about preprints and where that might be heading. We've heard, I think, one of the most interesting things is around the new players or existing players but playing a bigger role. So libraries and institutions, for example, playing a bigger role in publishing in the world of books as well as the world of journals. I thought Janneke Adima's talk about new university presses, academic-led publishing in health and social sciences was a really interesting one. And I thought Jean-Claude's comment about the fact that maybe humanities and social sciences are maybe a bit less encumbered by this highly commercial past, a bit less, not completely unencumbered. So maybe, the things can actually happen faster in humanities and social sciences. And that reminded me of what has happened in Latin America, where organizations like Cielo and others have kind of leapfrogged what's happened in other parts of the world. And open access levels are much higher in these parts of the world because of some of the things that they've done there in the absence of, APCs are a minority sport in those parts of the world. And yet amazing things have happened. And Jeffrey referred to it, but Kristen's talk about infrastructure was a really inspirational moment, I thought, in the meeting, and that could help with all sorts of other initiatives that we've heard about as well. So open infrastructure could be really transformational. So just a final thought about the evaluation dinosaur. The way that, this has come up, obviously, as it always does, time and again in the context of both journal brands, but also we heard about it this morning in the context of publisher brands with humanities and social science and impact factor-based ranking, et cetera, et cetera. So clearly, the finger-pointing thing doesn't work. It's no one person is going to fix this. It's a system. And there are forces at work within this system, positive feedback loops, negative feedback loops, which are maintaining this system in place. And I think everyone actually has their part to play. It was said a few times that what can publishers do? That we can't really do anything. I don't entirely agree with that. I think everyone can do something. And there's one thing that hasn't been mentioned. It's something that, so I just want to mention it briefly. It's something that we've put some effort into, and it's inspired actually by Nick Shockey at Spark, who was really pushing the idea of involvement of early career researchers in meaningful ways, not just tokenism, meaningful work within organizations. And so this is something we've really tried to push within eLife. So we've involved, an early career researcher at the board of directors level. We have an early career advisory group. We have involved early career researchers more in the running of the journal and things like that. And it just, what I think is the significance of that in terms of this system is that what we're doing is we're trying to counteract the tendency that those people with reputation gain more reputation. The rich get richer. This sense that it's the people with reputation that get put on the panels and the editorial boards and the committees. And actually, one way to counteract that is to bring in people who maybe haven't got a reputation yet. And early career researchers are a great example of that. And so that's something that everyone can experiment with. It's not I'm not saying it's a magic bullet. I'm just saying it's a really interesting angle on that, I think. To end, unlike the dinosaurs, we've got time to prepare for some of the transitions that are taking place. When collaborate, another big theme has been collaboration. We've heard about that again and again. When collaboration works, it's extraordinary. And so, when you are part of something where you're a part of something that is greater than the sum of its parts, that's a really wonderful feeling. And, the best example for me at the moment is this collaboration with Coco, but there are many more. And actually, I think OASPA, over the years, there's been that sentiment and that feeling there as well. Caroline and Paul talked about this last night in our lovely celebration. So, I am pretty optimistic that there's an opportunity here for us to collaborate and figure out how to deal with the challenges, the gauntlet that's been laid down by Plan S. So I think we can do this. So that's it. Let's do it. Really enjoyed the conference and wish you all a safe journey home. But before I go, you've got to leave these. Just leave them on the desk. So thank you all very much.